A very good evening. You're joining Weekend Dialogue on Biz Roundup. We have with us the chairman of the Tea Exporters Association, Mr. Rohan Fernando. Thank you very much for coming over.
Thank you for inviting me, Indira. Good evening to you.
Good evening. And Mr. Fernando, tell us how your new appointment how is it for you and how are the challenges that have fallen ahead for you?
Yeah, this is the first time I'm heading this organization as a chairman. And as you know, tea exporters have grouped themselves together as an association, and we have been trying to make our voice heard to the authorities in Sri Lanka that exports, particularly in relation to tea, has to be taken seriously. So in that aspect, I believe it's a challenging task for me to lead the organization, but I am very happy we have a consensus among our members. Majority of them believe our strategy for the future of the tea export industry in Sri Lanka. So it's quite an interesting challenge.
Right, and how are you thinking of coming about this challenge?
Yes, now we have proposed a strategy how to take it to a higher level. From $800 million, we were able to bring it up to $1.5 billion. We still believe it's not the real strength of the tea export industry. So our focus is to take this to a $5 billion industry by 2020. So towards that, we have proposed a series of strategies and the implementational propositions. So that is what we want to discuss with the authorities and put forward to the government to look at it seriously if we are looking at export-oriented economy for Sri Lanka.
Right, and at the same time, there are a lot of negativities that are posed on the export sector as a whole. I'm sure the tea export is not spared of this. Yeah. How do you view the tea export sector?
Like any other export sector, tea is also export in external driven economy. And what we experience right now is the recession still continuing. We all felt that it has bottomed down, but I think it's far from that. If you look at the European sector, I think they are in a worse situation than before, and even the US has not recovered. So only sector that has somehow stayed above the drowning level is the Far Eastern sector, the Eastern markets. So that is where the tea exporters feel there's a lot of growth, especially in places like China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan is a small market, of course, Philippines, and that sector. So we have to look differently in this current situation to look at new markets, new ways of marketing, new ways of introducing new products, diversification, innovation. I think all these are challenges we believe offers a lot of opportunities.
Right. You did mention we need to look at new strategies, new ways of coming about this challenging period. But as a whole, the tea sector, I mean, where do we stand today in the export market? Tea is a major exporter for Sri Lanka. Yeah. Where do we stand today?
Fortunately, all the tea that is manufactured in Sri Lanka is exported. We don't have any residue remaining in Sri Lanka. But what we need to take into account are the new players who are now coming into the world export market. All this time we believe Ceylon tea is the best in the world. I am not saying that it is not one of the best. It is one of the best teas in the world. But at the same time, you recognize our competition also. Now Vietnam is coming in a big way. Kenyan teas are coming in a big way. Even China has increased its output of tea production. So there are new players coming into the market. So in relation to that, our export percentage, which we enjoyed around 20-23%, is dropping in a largely expanding tea consumption from about 3 billion going up to 4 billion. Mm-hmm. Our export volume out of Sri Lanka has remained stagnant. So therefore, we are losing our international market share. So that is where we are focusing to expand that market share.
How do you intend to expand this market share and retain Sri Lanka's share in the global market?
Now you have brought me into a very questionable and very, I would say, delicate question. Yes, we were looking at the world economy, the world tea exports, and the ability of Sri Lanka to take a bigger portion of the world tea export market. So that is why we suggested the tea export SUB, strategic business unit, or now people call it the hub, and that how has become a bad word now. But where we present to the government a value addition center in a secluded economic zone, so that we can, whilst doing the POC lawn tea packed in Sri Lanka unaffected by any form of contamination of, not I wouldn't say contamination, mix of imported teas, where we could look at another segment where the value addition using multi-origin teas could be taken by our, attended to by our exporters to get a much bigger share of the tea export market. So now these are highly debatable question, and a lot of people have given different connotations to these words, liberalize imports, hub, and various things. But I think that is taken out of context. You have to really look at the core values and what we are looking at whilst maintaining our true identity.
Right. Now, if we move on from the local tea export sector to your company, HVF Foods, you're having a good run at the Chinese
Yes.
market.
Yes.
Is this part of diversifying? Is this going into new markets? So you have secured a good business in the Chinese market. Tell us, elaborate on this to us.
In the very now, we looked at the tea as a very simple beverage. That is the way tea has been marketed out of origins for years. I would say for over 1.5 centuries, that's the way tea has been marketed. We, being a company that looks at innovation, we looked at it from a totally different angle to take tea to a higher level of like a lifestyle beverage. It's not only a pure, simple, cheap beverage, it's going to be a lifestyle beverage. That is where we linked up with our Chinese partners and established the tea cafes or salons in China under our second brand called Infinity. Now that segment has grown. Today we have about 30 tea shops in China, and our target is to increase to 100 tea shops by the end of 2013. That's our target. And we have also set up our concept tea salon in Sri Lanka at the Dutch Hospital precinct, and that has brought in a lot of inquiries from around the globe to set up similar tea cafes. Now our tea cafe is not
You mean across the world?
Across the world.
Right.
As US, Canada, now we got a very serious inquiry from Bangladesh and from India to set up similar concept shops. Now our tea shop is not just a kade or where you can go and have a cup of tea. That gives the ambience, it gives a real pleasure of having a cup of tea with some accompanying foods, and also going to a higher level of tea cocktails and basically high-end lifestyle products.
Right. So now, from what you say, from HVA Foods' experience in the local market and of course outside the country, and being able to secure a huge place in the Chinese market, this means that the local tea export sector as a whole could actually move into new markets, as you just mentioned. So shouldn't we also look at India and other markets that are closer to us?
Yes, Indira, I think that is the way forward. Now, you see, earlier the idea was that you want to go into a market and set up shop. Today that format has changed. There's no way you can go on your own and set up shop the way the multinationals did long time ago. Today you need strong partners in that particular region. Now in India, that's a market that is waiting to be exploited. But you need to have a strong partner, an Indian partner, to do the expansion. So basically today you have to work on joint ventures. That is the way forward for expansion into big and strong markets like India, China, Russia, and where the markets are growing.
I understand this is not something that you can push our exporters to do alone, but everyone has to be conscious of this. But what do you think is the government's role in this exercise?
Unfortunately, the government is taking a fairly lukewarm attitude towards the tea export industry. That's the feeling I get. We have given a lot of propositions that has not been taken seriously up to now. Even the tea development fund that we set up, where all the exporters willingly contributed money, and there was unanimity on collecting this money for the Tea Export Development Fund for promotion of land logo. That has also been delayed for various bureaucratic reasons, not for any other reasons. So I believe the government must focus on the tea export industry, where we have set the trend more than any other industry, that we can do branding in most mature markets like Japan, Russia, China, US, where our brands are on the shelf. Now even garment industry now is trying to do that, what we have done. But having said that, tea industry has to do much more. There's much more to be achieved, and that is where the government has to talk to us seriously and take us as partners, not as people who are asking favors from the government, which we have never done. So we have to be partners in business to develop this country and the economy.
Right. Why do you think the government is taking a backward attitude towards the tea sector?
One reason I believe is it's put in one basket called the tea industry. Unfortunately, the authorities or the decision makers have not realized the world has changed. In the way you do the trade, the economies have changed, people's desires have changed, marketing has changed completely, people are looking for new things. So tea industry has also changed. You have two main sectors. One is the tea plantation industry, but the other one is the tea export industry. Until they come to realization that these are two very different, very important industries, may be connected like the umbilical cord, you can't take it forward. Because government, when you look at the tea industry, always looks at it from the plantation side, the farmer, and tend to neglect the exporters, thinking they can survive. But if you look at the exporters and develop that into a $5 billion industry, just imagine the spin-off benefit that will automatically come to the plantations. It has to trickle down to the tea plantation and to the smallest of the farmers. And that is what we believe should take place. It won't happen overnight. You have to have a long-term plan, 5-year, 10-year plan, where we can achieve these targets. And the tea exporters are quite resilient, and they are very strong-minded to do this and to support the government. So that is where I feel the void and the division comes.
Right. And also, Mr. Fernando, I think we don't have much time, but I would just like to ask you, since we spoke about the government's involvement and of course the way forward for the tea sector, Budget 2013, does this mean that the 2013 budget has neglected the demands and proposals made by the tea exporters?
Let me, there are a lot of discussion that have been taken place on the budget from the day the budget was presented. If you look at the budget as an overall piece of legislation or the economic policy of the government, budget is more or less a development-oriented budget, which is good. And it is giving a lot of the impetus and recognition to develop the agri-based economy. But for some reason or the other, if you look at the tea export industry, they have discussed only about organic tea and not about expanding the tea exports into a higher level, higher plane. That we don't know why the government has done that. Probably they must be having their own reasons. But it is a bit unfortunate that this particular important aspect has not been addressed, and the Tea Exporters Association, which is the main body representing 80% of the tea export out of this country, had not been even consulted in the budget proposal, though we have sent our proposals. I hope, though there's the negative aspect there, the government will even now or sooner than later discuss with us as to how the tea export industry can be brought in to strengthen the Sri Lanka's economy.
Right. So I think a wider national debate is needed on a wider platform to discuss the way forward for the tea export sector. And I wish you all the very best for all your endeavors in future as the chairman of the Tea Exporters Association.
Thank you very much, Anjali.
Well, we had with us Mr. Rohan Fernando, the new chairman of the Sri Lanka Tea Exporters Association.